Good morning, sir. Good morning, professors. On behalf of SKCET CS Department, I would like to welcome our resource person, Dr. Jude Hamant, Associate Professor, Department of CSE, Cornell University, Coimbatore. And also, I would like to welcome all the participants from various institutions for the session on optimization for deep learning. So before going to start our session, I would like to give a brief introduction about our resource person, Dr. G. Jude Hammond. Dr. D. Jude Hammond received his BE degree in ECE from Bardhan University in 2002, MA degree in Communication Systems from Anna University in 2006, and PhD from Cornell University in 2013. He is having 15 years of teaching experience. His research areas includes computational intelligence, biomedical image processing, optimization technique, decision support systems, and machine learning. He has authored more than 150 research papers in reputed SAE index international journals and Scopus index conferences. He has published 37 edited books with reputed publishers such as Elsevier, Springer, and IET. He has been serving as associate editor in various reputed journals like IEEE, Springer, etc. He serves as an editorial board member and guest editor of many journals with leading publishers such as Springer, InDesigns, etc. He has completed various funded research projects from CSIR and Government of India. He has received a project grant worth 34,000 UK pounds from Government of UK under CCRE scheme. And he is also having one ongoing funded project from DST. He has been also the organizing committee member of several international conferences across the globe. He has delivered more than 100 keynote talks in international conferences and workshops. Currently, he is working as associate professor in Cornell University, Coimbatore. He also holds the position of visiting professor in Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Information Technology, University of Venda, Romania. Yes. Professors, have a happy learning. Over to sir. Sir, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam, for your introduction, and thank you all the participants for joining in this FDP to gain some knowledge. And I also thank Dr. Rama Abirami and Dr. Gautami and all the other team members who are behind this organization of this FDP. And I should also thank the management of Krishna College of Engineering and Technology. I am not very sure. I think this is the 10th or 15th talk.
The voice is not audible.
Is my voice audible? Participants, can you give a response? The mic is in full mode.
Yes, sir, audible, sir.
Yes, yes.
Sir, audible, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sir, your voice is not audible, sir.
But other participants are saying it's okay.
Ma'am, it's audible only, ma'am.
Ma'am, can you check the internet connection in your side? Shall I continue, participants?
Sir, it's audible, but your voice is low, sir. Very low.
But this is the maximum I have.
Sir, audible, sir.
Audible?
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, our side it's audible only, ma'am.
Yes, sir,
Okay.
you're audible, sir.
Okay, we will continue. Yeah, that's fine. Maybe as we go on with the talk, maybe it will be okay, I think. Please check your internet connection also from your side, because I think I have everything in the maximum limit in my side. Okay. Thank you very much, Sri Krishna College of Engineering and Technology, for inviting me once again. I am not very sure. This may be the 10th or 15th talk I am delivering for this institution. I feel like home away from home with them. So thank you very much for all the stuffs. And the most important thing is you participants, you have come with much eagerness to learn something about deep learning, and I appreciate that. And I assure you that the next 1.5 hours or maybe 1 hour 45 minutes, which we are going to have, will be definitely useful for you. Let me go into the screen share mode. Is my slide visible?
Yes, sir, visible, sir.
Okay. So today I'm going to give you some contents on deep learning. Right? So deep learning, I am very sure that most of you would have used that. Maybe 50% of you, maybe in the beginning stage, but at least 50% of you would have heard that, or your scholar would have used that, and you yourself sometimes would have used that for your implementation. Right? But the thing is, with the advancement in the software technologies, say for example, Python, MATLAB, R, and other data science tools, normally what we do is, without knowing the background information, we straight away go to the software, take the output, go and present in the form of a research paper. Right? That is the reason why papers are not getting accepted. It's one of the significant reasons why our papers are always rejected. Right? Only if you know the hidden agenda or hidden objective behind this concept of deep learning, then we can develop something on our own. What happens to the innovative contribution? We have CNN, we have LSTM, we have GAN, we have so many networks available, but they are framed by someone else. What is our contribution with deep learning? That is an important aspect which most of the researchers are missing nowadays. The reason is the background understanding of deep learning is not given to them. So my first agenda will be specifically on giving some hidden aspects why this deep learning is more important than other machine learning techniques, with some specific key points in mind. Right? The second one is come to optimization. Another interesting factor is you refer any research papers, you refer any blogs, you refer any textbooks. Most of the time they would have explained the architecture, but most of the time they will skip the training algorithm part. Right? The hyperparameter tuning part will not be discussed. Right? That's not necessary. It's a huge mathematical derivations behind it. It is not necessary to explain all those things, but the significance of those parameters must be given in the content, which is very, very important for a researcher to learn something about that. Optimization is not just like that evolutionary computation optimization, but the tuning process. Right? What parameters are we going to tune? Those stuffs are very, very important. So I will be taking one specific a deep learning network, and specifically it is a computer vision model, CNN. And with that, I will be discussing about how innovative contributions can be made with CNN, and also what parameters are available in CNN for tuning, so that when you understand those parameters, it will be better for you to derive some innovative contributions on your own. So these will be the two agendas with which I'm going to have my session. So this is something about me. I always, whenever I go for a seminar or a webinar, I always give this slide to my participants. I'm not sure how many of you are following me. If you're following me already, you must be knowing about this. So one PowerPoint slide, this is not for me, but specifically for every participants to have one PPT slide of their own. It's more than like a self-evaluatory tool. A researcher not only should pay concentration on gaining knowledge and implementation, but he must put that into practice. You come, attend workshop, that is fine. You gain knowledge, that is fine. And after 2 or 3 months, if you forget, and if you are mainly attending that because for a certificate or something of that sort, things will not move in your career. Even after 10 years, you will be still attending workshops only. Right? So how many of you put that into practice? How can we check that, whether we are putting that into practice? You need to have some self-evaluatory tools. I always have this one PowerPoint slide with me as a self-evaluatory tool. So I also find that it is very much useful, and I also advise my participants to have one thing. Maybe in the beginning stage, you may not have much points to add with you, but once you proceed with that, when you make it as a practice, then automatically all these concepts will be added to you. As a hint, you can have some areas of interest. People normally they fluctuate between the areas of interest, which is not a good idea when you go for international collaborations. Your root should be same. Your root should be same. You can have many branches with the different leaves, all the stuffs can be there, but your root should be same. So areas of interest, be strong in that. Then you'll have some parameters about the publications. The numbers are important, and that was specifically only in Psi or Scopus. Then cumulative impact factor is very, very important. Till now, this factor or point is not gaining attention in our part, at least in India. But in the Western countries, if you want to go for a postdoc or something like that, definitely they are going to look for that. Number of citations, H-index, you must be knowing. So once you have your publications under your belt, you can go for some projects. You can have within India, within our country, and there are also plenty of opportunities with other countries outside India too. So maybe you can have a try on that. But for that, your first box should have been ticked. Your publications should be sufficiently strong. For your publications to be sufficiently strong, you need to have good understanding on your areas of interest. Again, people talk about consultancy and patents, but more than that, there are many other dimensions available for a researcher to explore. Your book publications, then you will be invited to join as editorial positions of different journals. Maybe I will show you some of my open call for papers at the end of my session. And then you can go into the book series editorship also. And another thing is you can associate yourself with many researchers outside the world. There are many labs waiting for people, but you must work. It's not like just signing an MOU and doing nothing. It's not something like that. You will have meeting every week and you need to finish your assignments. That's the way one has to proceed. Then you will be asked to deliver talks to. So this is just a motivating slide for you, how a researcher should be. I find this as a successful model for me. So I expect my participants also to have, so it may be useful for me. Let us go into the agenda. A brief overview of artificial intelligence. Nowadays, artificial intelligence and machine learning are two keywords which are used invariably everywhere. You take any Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it may be, they say AI and ML. What do you mean by that? Whether both are same, whether both are different, most of the time we do not know the difference. Right? I'll give a brief overview on that. Then I will go into the necessity for deep learning, why we are running behind deep learning, and some types of deep learning. And specifically, we will talk about convolutional neural networks. Right? You would have used that, but some hidden agenda, hidden aspects of CNN, I will inform you, so that when you think on that, there is a chance that you may get something new from this CNN. You can generate some new deep learning models too. And then transfer learning, where we will be talking about the parameters tuning process. I will show you with some applications too. How many parameters, what is the complexity of deep learning in terms of its parameters, tunable and non-tunable parameters. Finally, I will end up with some open research problems. Maybe some beginners or some research scholars may be here. You can make use of that. And finally, we can have a question answer session. All the contents which I'm going to deliver are from my mind, right? I do not know what is there in your mind. Elon Musk says with Neuralink, we can transfer the information, but currently I will not be able to find it. So whatever your mind has, or whatever you think in your mind, you can let me know. We can have a discussion session too. I hope to finish this within the time period, but if not possible, maybe one or two concepts we can skip so that we can spend a bit more time on question answer session. Okay, the first thing is AI and ML, right? It's not advisable to jump directly into the concept of deep learning, right? It is a hierarchy. I will show you the hierarchy later. There is a hierarchy by which we reach the level of deep learning. Right? So it is worthwhile to explore or spend some time, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, on what is the concept of artificial intelligence and what is the objective of machine learning. Once you understand the differences between these two people, then it is very, very easy to get into the concept of deep learning. Then it will definitely motivate you to explore more in the area of artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence, machine intelligence, computational intelligence, right? These are some words being invariably used. People say, have you learned artificial intelligence? I may say yes. And some other people may say, I have learned machine intelligence. But there can be used these words invariably. It is still a big question mark. It is not very clear. AI sometimes cannot be equal to machine intelligence. right? So, but in the colloquial language, we make use of that. For that, we need to have a good understanding. What is this AI, artificial intelligence, all about? Whenever we see a word with artificial phrase, right, artificial colors, artificial flavors, then you must understand that there is something natural too. There is something natural too. Artificial is only duplicated, copied, replicated from a natural phenomenon. Right? In the same way, our intelligence is also copied from someone. From where? From the natural intelligence. Right? So it is necessary to understand how this natural intelligence came into existence. Only then you will find out why AI is that much important in the current scenario. So for that, we need to go back a little bit, maybe not a little bit, long back, to understand the way in which our human beings are created. God is supposed to be the superpower of the entire world, and we believe that he created human beings. I'm not very sure how many of you still persist with the Darwin's theory of natural evolution. Okay, that will be the debate for another day. But for the time being, you understand that God created human beings. Right? And what is the purpose of that? What is the objective of that? God always had a desire to create some structures or some beings which can move with him, walk with him, and talk with him. So with that objective, he created human beings. And the creation of human beings most probably may be having a two-stage process. When he created a human being, initially it was only a dumb structure. Then he injected life into that human beings, and human beings came into existence, and they were able to make decisions on their own. Here I have to pinpoint your attention to the dumb structure and the intelligence. The outside body, the outside structure is visible to all, but the intelligence is not visible to all. It can be only felt. Right? So this outside structure can be called as a hardware part in engineering terms, and the intelligence, that's unseen thing, can be called as a software part. A hardware cannot exist without a software, and a software cannot exist without a hardware. In the same way, human body cannot exist without a soul. In the same time, a soul cannot exist without a human body. Right? So both stuffs are very, very important. So human beings took this decision-making skill, and they are said to have this concept of natural intelligence. Now, things were going smooth until maybe 150 years back. Humans also had a desire 150 years back. What is their desire? They also want to create someone. Right? I could not say someone, something maybe. But they very well know they cannot create anything with blood and flesh. They cannot create anything with the blood and flesh. They are dependent much on the engineering materials such as steel, iron, and all the other stuffs. And they thought, let me also create a structure which is something similar to a human being. We call them as machines. But these machines, again, they cannot behave on their own. They cannot make a decision on their own. If they want to make a decision and if they want to behave on their own, some intelligence should be incorporated. Right? So this is the part where our complete deep learning, machine learning, and all other structures are related with. How can I incorporate the self-decision-making capability within a machine? Right? Once if I am able to give that, then definitely I can say that machine is with artificial intelligence. For that, I must understand how intelligence has been incorporated within a human body. So the hierarchy is God, humans, and machines. What is intelligence? What is natural intelligence? It is the ability of human beings to take decisions, decision making when he or she receives a stimulus or an input. Right? Suddenly, if I assume a snake enters this room, I start running. I will not bother about delivering a talk to you people or not. Right? What makes me run? Right? Whenever I see a data, whenever I see an input, whenever my brain receives an input, which we call it as a stimulus, When it reaches the brain is going to make some decisions, and based on the decisions, I make my next movement. Right? This is the complete concept of natural intelligence. So we have an input, we have an output, and we have a processor. What is beauty about the inputs? The body receives the inputs from the external environment via our 5 sense organs. Normally people say our heart is very important, our kidney is very important. These are very huge or very significant body parts. But I will say that more than them, we have the 5 sense organs which we learned in our kindergarten classes. When all 5 sense organs are shut, your life will reach a virtual standstill stage. You will not be able to receive any information from the external environment. That is the interface. So what is all about eye? Images or videos. So as long as a person has eyes, image processing will never die. As long as a person has ears, signal processing will never die. There are also other data in terms of numbers, your pressure, your temperature, your climate, or whatever it may be, that is being observed with the help of skin. Right? So we normally talk about big data and data mining data. All these are from the natural environment only. We did not create anything on our own. We just copied. But if we understand how we copied, then the chances of creating something new is very high. So these are called as inputs and raw data, and these inputs reaches the human brain and humans take decisions. Now our attention will be not on the data part. We are not going to deal with data on the brain part or the decision making part. How we are going to make a decision, or how a human brain is making a decision. But interestingly, it is not yet fully explored by human beings. The reason is maybe God would have hidden something in brain, nobody knows. We have positive outputs and negative outputs too because of this single aspect. Positive in the sense we forget things, we do not know what happens in the future, and we live today. That's fine. But the negative thing is we are unable to find any cure for brain-related diseases, like tumor, schizophrenia, dementia, Alzheimer, still bothering the humankind. Nobody knows when we can have an exploration on them. Examples: why does a 6-month-old baby cry when he or she is hungry? How she has the capability of attracting the nearby environment? Nobody knows. How do you find your way home from your university? These are simple decisions, simple actions, right, for which we do not have answers. Still, now there are huge amount of research going in the area of neuroscience to try and explore more about human brain. When that is a hit, definitely you can see revolutionary technologies in AI, ML, and deep learning, because we are trying to just copy the human brain for our decision-making part. About 85% of inputs received by brain are via eyes, images. They hold a significant position. Justification is a simple question I can ask you. How many of you sleep with your eyes closed? Everyone, right? Everyone will sleep with our eyes closed. Why? Why can't you sleep with your eyes open? Whenever eyes are open, it has an interface with the external environment. The image is captured and it is continuously being given to our brain. So brain is not able to handle the huge amount of information from our eyes. So it starts functioning. So we cannot sleep. That's why God knows that, and He has given an automatic shutter to our eyes. So whenever you feel drowsy or whenever you feel sleepy, automatically your eyelids close and your supply is cut off. Right? So brain is much related with our eyes. So image processing or computer vision group, they hold significant A's in the field of artificial intelligence and computing community. The next question is, how many of us sleep with our ears closed? Right? Nobody does that, right? We know. Even though there are huge noises nearby, somebody is watching TV, still we are able to sleep. What does it mean? Our data is entering, although with the ears, the effect in the brain is not that much. Brain is not much bothered about the information via ears. That's why even though it reaches, it takes first. but it's not the case with the eyes. So just one specific information, the importance of computer vision, because I find that this is a computer vision group. Most of you may be from that specific background. So what is artificial intelligence? As I told you, we cannot go into AI directly. We need a structure. We need a hardware. That's how the human beings are created. A hardware plus software gives an artificial life. But for this session, I am not going to focus on the purple color artificial life. I am not going to concentrate on the green color hardware or the structure part, but I am going to concentrate on the red color artificial intelligence part, which we are unable to see. He is angry, he is happy, the emotions, the intelligence decision making, how I am taking a decision. Right? We cannot see, we can only feel. We say he is an intelligent boy, he is less intelligent, right? But nobody can see the intelligence. So what is beauty in that? What are the concepts behind that? And our recent technology, deep learning, what it talks about that? That is what we are going to see in our session. But our objective, almost all the objective of the, objective of all the scientists in this real world is to make that artificial life. Maybe that we can have another day a session, maybe possible. But again, it is debatable whether it is good or bad. So we need the engineering, all engineering concepts should come together to make this artificial life, right? Intelligence part, maybe computing people may take care of, but otherwise, how we are going to take the input to the artificial machine? What is the interface between the artificial machine and the environment? So far I'm giving the data, right? In 2021, I am still supplying the data, but I am not interested in that. The machine should take a data on its own. So it needs nose, it needs mouth, it needs ears, it needs eyes. That's why a separate research on artificial organs are going on. So when all these people come together, maybe, I do not know when it will happen, there is a chance that AL may come into existence. So now we will narrow down into our concept of machine learning. So the process of providing decision-making skill to the artificial human being is called AI. Right? How we are incorporating intelligence. I am not going to talk about whether we are taking a right decision or a wrong decision. Do you have the capability of making a decision? If yes, then you can say you have intelligence. Okay. If it is good, then you are highly intelligent. If it is bad, then you are less intelligent. So AI is the science and engineering of making machines which can behave without the support of human intelligence. All these stories you might be knowing. But the beauty is, as I told you, there are many components or many building blocks on which this AI depends on. AI cannot stand on its own. It needs data. Only if it gets data, it can take a decision. All our machine learning, you need to supply data. So you cannot leave your data as such. In other words, I can say there are many building blocks which makes this AI a successful technology. What are the building blocks? Knowledge, reasoning, and representation. The way in which you depict the data to a machine. I can show a picture of an apple and teach a child that it is a mango. So whenever the child sees the data as an actual apple, it may say it is a mango, right? Data representation is very, very important. Your data should be as much accurate as possible. You need to have a background idea on the application which you are going to do or which you are doing. Big data, data mining, all these areas are very, very important because the tremendous way in which the data is created in this world. Facebook says it creates terabytes of data each day. The speed with which the data is created is enormous. And also they are not going to be homogeneous data. They are going to be heterogeneous data where mixture of data will be there. Again, we have another type of separate research area called as planning searching, where we can say all the data which we get from step number 1, A, is not going to be useful. Right? Now you take this instant. You can look at my video because my video is on. You can listen to my voice. You can feel the temperature in your room. 3 inputs. All the 3 inputs at a time reaches your brain. But I suppose you are giving more importance to my voice. In the same way, when we go for our machine learning, deep learning also, all the data may not be necessary. So we can remove some of them with the planning, searching, optimization, or evolutionary computation process. Many steps are available. Then comes our speech signal processing, where we talk about natural language processing, NLP, text to data, how we can communicate with another people. Normally, I type a WhatsApp message. How can the person sitting on the other side will find the emotion of or the feelings behind that complete text with which I am typing? Right? I may be having a different mood, but I may be giving a different text. Can we find that? Can we find the emotions with the text data? Maybe possible. Virtual reality, augmented reality, everything comes under this category. Computer vision, again, eyes, human being, images, artificial engineering. Data, you must be knowing about computer vision process also. Now, with A, B, C, D, all these are something related with the data and external environment. Now I need to communicate with my machine. For that, I need an interface. People talk about HCI and BCI more nowadays. How can we interact with a machine, or say, for example, a computer and a human brain, human-computer interaction and a brain-computer interface. Then comes our machine learning. Right? So machine learning cannot stand on its own. It needs the support of data. Your data should be accurate and all other processes are there. But people who are working with computer vision, they are not much into machine learning concept. You cannot mix computer vision and machine learning. Right? Computer vision, they will be dealing only with image processing and other related stuffs. Hardly they go into ML. But if you are an expert in ML, you can take the data of an image and then you can process it. And this is an important slide where we can find out whether we can invariably use the word AI, machine intelligence, and computer intelligence. In my opinion, you cannot use those words invariably, but opinion differs. 3 types of AI are available. We call it as narrow intelligence, general intelligence, and super intelligence. And the objective of this AI are all the things which we are studying so far, maybe for the 20 years or 50 years, is to achieve stage 3. The super intelligence, when a human being or when a machine can overpower a human being. Right? When you look at stage 2, it is where a machine can be equal to the human being. Stage 1, your machine is still inferior to human being. It can do only one task. If it is face recognition, it can do only face recognition. If it is gesture recognition, only gesture recognition. But stage 2 or stage 3 are more advanced than stage 1. When I was doing my BTech maybe 20 years back, I was told by 2020 there will be machines all over this world and they will be dominating us. Till 2021, we are still talking about differentiating a cat and a dog. Maybe I am also going to say the same thing to you. When will we reach stage 3? Nobody knows. Right? So this stage 1 is called as machine learning. This stage 1 is called as machine learning. But when we reach stage 2 and stage 3, you cannot use the word machine learning for artificial intelligence. They are different. Only if we reach stage 2, where a machine can be equal to a human being, we can call it as machine intelligence. Machine intelligence. And the third stage is machine consciousness. We are still in stage 1 and we talk about only machine learning, right? Only one task. We are unable to generalize that. So maybe, I am not sure, AI can be called as machine learning now. Once we go for other stages, it may not be possible. So it is not correct to call machine intelligence now. When we say machine intelligence, your machine should be at least equal to a human being in doing multiple tasks. But in current situation, still we have not reached that. Maybe some works are going on, but still we have not reached that. Now, when we talk about machine learning, the most important part or most important technology in today's scenario is deep learning, right? Machine learning has a complete evolution. Deep learning doesn't come in a single day. It has a series of changes. The machine learning process, it experienced a series of changes throughout the years, right from 1940 till 2010. So some scholars, some research scholars, some beginners, they immediately try to jump into deep learning, which is a wrong idea. You need to start from the scratch. Deep learning is built on a specific technology called as artificial neural networks. The architecture, the algorithms, everything is revolving around artificial neural networks. So if you are not comfortable with artificial neural networks, first you need to identify that, understand that you must have a hands-on experience before going into deep learning. We have perceptron, we have Adeline. These are single layer artificial neural network. I hope you must be having a good idea on AI, and so I'm skipping all those things. And in 1990, we had multi-layer perceptron, which is nothing but backpropagation. And in 2010, deep learning came into existence. And till now, we are comfortable with deep learning. And people say there are lots and lots of loopholes in deep learning. Now, quantum machine learning process. We normally talk about normal machine learning, but quantum machine learning is on the rise. And deep other systems are also on the rise. So I am not very sure how long deep learning will exist. People are continuously finding some changes, innovative contributions. That should be the focus of all the researchers too. It is not using the same thing again and again. How I can contribute to the deep learning society. When you have that attitude, when you learn anything, you will try to find out the different information in that concept. The concept may be same. CNN is not a new thing, but the way in which you are learning that should be completely different. Right? So that should be the objective of everyone, and this is the objective of our session too. Artificial neural networks versus deep learning. Why deep learning? Why not artificial neural networks? Deep learning is the advanced representation of ANN. If you understand, if you take the phrase of deep learning, you can find two words there. One is learning, one is deep. If you are already expert in ANN, you must understand that ANN will have an architecture and also a training algorithm. Machine learning makes the machine learn with an iterative process, which we call it as a training process or a training algorithm. So this deep corresponds to the architecture, and the word learning corresponds to the training algorithm. That means deep learning is different from artificial neural networks, both in terms of architecture and both in terms of learning algorithms or training algorithms. That's why we talk about hyperparameter tuning separately for deep learning methodologies. The word deep corresponds to more layers. You can see two diagrams here, one on my right hand side and one on my left hand side. On my left hand side, you can call it as a normal backpropagation neural network or a simple feed-forward neural network. But on the right hand side, you can see the same architecture, right? I have not given much difference for that. But the number of columns, the circles, the neurons, or we can call it as layers, the number of layers are more in the diagram which is given on the right side. Now, immediately you can ask me a question, right? Already we saw in the previous slide that we have multi-layer backpropagation neural network, or the diagram on my left-hand side. Why should I go for another architecture? I am just including many layers. I am just including many layers. If that is the case, why should I go for something new? Can I make these layers in the same BPN and they say this is a deep neural network? I can do, right? Then why should we go for deep learning when already multi-layer neural networks are available? The question is, or the answer is, more number of layers means high accuracy. I will validate this statement when we go into our methodology and our application part. More number of layers means high accuracy. So there is no doubt that you must increase the number of layers, right? But if I increase the number of layers in my conventional backpropagation neural network, diagram-wise, no, not a problem. But again, if I train that many layers with my stochastic gradient descent algorithm, the normal steepest descent algorithm of BPN, I am not going to get that much accuracy. I should restrict my backpropagation neural network for practical applications, probably with a maximum of 2 hidden layers. When I increase the number of hidden layers, the accuracy drops. The decision-making skill of that machine fails. It looks at an apple and says it is a mango, right? So how can I do that? But I know, again, more number of layers means high accuracy. So these two statements are contradictory. So what I know, what I find is, let me have another architecture with a different training algorithm, and at the same time, the number of layers will be increased in that architecture for which the training algorithm will be suitable. In BPN, the training algorithm is not suitable for an architecture with more than 2 hidden layers. If you analyze the research papers published in the 1990s, 1995 with neural networks, you can find that people would have experimented with different number of layers. They will say 2 hidden layers, 3 hidden layers, 4 hidden layers, 5 hidden layers. That would have been a research paper. Nowadays, there is no talk about increasing the number of layers in BPN. No, it will not work out, because already we have a concrete information that when we go for deep learning with more layers, we are going to get a better accuracy. So research with BPN with more layers are not going to be beneficial in today's scenario. So this is not my statement. You can go to this web link where they have given lots and lots of validations on why you should restrict your BPN architecture with a maximum of 2 hidden layers. Right? Your SGD is not suitable for an architecture with more number of layers. So we need an architecture with more layers, which we call it as deep neural networks. This is the first significance or importance why people are moving towards deep learning. The second one is from an application point of view. From an application point of view, most of you would have heard about pattern recognition applications. Right? Pattern recognition is another important application. Only if I realize this is a laptop, I can do some programming or whatever with it. Only if I identify that this is a water bottle, I can drink water with that. Right? But we normally, in our real life situation, we underestimate this pattern recognition concept. Right? If I wrongly identify a machine or a device, then it is not going to be useful. So if this is the case for human beings, for a natural intelligence, when I go for machine intelligence, the first thing is machine should identify that this is an umbrella, this is an sanitizer, this is a water bottle, this is a mobile phone. Only the second step is it is going to do some work with that. Until 2021, we are still in the stage of identifying whether this is a mobile phone or a water bottle. So engineers like you, researchers like you, even including me, we need to put our efforts to go to the next stage of pattern recognition. So currently we are talking about pattern recognition. You can take the simple case study of number recognition. This is a pattern 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 9. So if you use artificial neural networks for implementation, this will be your block diagram. I hope 99% of the people sitting on the other side would have used this. You will have some input, you will have some pre-processing, you will have some feature extraction, and you will have some recognition. In the recognition block, you will have your artificial neural network. Fine, you will get the answer. Now, if I say I am replacing the neural network in the recognition block with the deep learning method, any deep learning method, how my flow diagram will change? Is it the same as that of my previous block? The answer is no. You do not have the concept of feature extraction. Interestingly, the research papers which we check in my editorial login in different journals at the capacity of an associate editor, I find most of the researchers making mistake here. They still include a block diagram of feature extraction. Whenever you include a block diagram with different blocks, when I check out your results, experimental results section, I will expect the output of pre-processing, output of feature extraction, output of recognition, right? But interestingly, your deep learning is without feature extraction process. This is one of the hidden idea of deep learning. When I say there is no, then you can ask me, are we going to paste the photo or the image on the computer, laptop? No. The computer will understand only number. Then we should need some procedure to convert an image into a number. How do I do that? When I say no feature extraction, there is no manual feature extraction available with deep learning. Never ever make this mistake when you do some implementation. There is no manual feature extraction, but the feature extraction is being done automatically. In other words, your feature extraction and recognition block are merged. So we are saying that the algorithm itself has the capability of extracting the features. The same process. I'm not altering the process, but the way in which I'm going to extract the features is going to be different. There's no need for manual feature extraction. And the deep learning architecture, any method, be it CNN, LSTM, GAN, or whatever it may be, they are going to extract on its own. So you can again ask me, what is wrong with having a manual feature extraction? Right? I'm getting good answer with that. What is beauty in going for automated feature extraction? Right? Say, for example, I am sitting here. Some people may be sitting on the other side, say some professor from Sri Krishna College. And you are asking a person from Sri Krishna College to differentiate myself and that professor. If that person, if that judge knows myself and professor, then he will be or she will be able to do that. But if she or he doesn't know about me, then how will she differentiate myself and professor from that college? The same way or the same problem we face in most of our applications. We do not have an expertise in all applications. Say, for example, you take the case study of COVID-19. How many of us having good knowledge on COVID-19? If I ask you a question, which vaccine should I go for with COVID-19? What will be your answer? Right? We are not having good expertise. In that case, when you assume something, okay, professor may be looking like this, and when you do some feature extraction on your own, manually, and then give it to the machine, how the machine can identify it correctly? Because your features are wrong, then the chances of the machine making a decision, as we saw in our first slide, also will go wrong. How can I solve this? How can I solve this? You can leave the responsibility of feature extraction to the machine itself. It will know, it has the capability. The methodology of deep learning is trained in such a way that it will know what features to extract from the data. Isn't it interesting? That's the way how these deep learning methodologies have been derived. It knows what features has to be extracted from the data, and it extracts the features, and it makes the recognition or the decision-making effort, because of which it is giving a better accuracy. Till 2021, people are not much bothered about the computational complexity of deep learning. That I will talk to you when we talk about the research problems. Just they need high accuracy, so they go to deep learning. And deep learning also guarantee them or ensure them they will get a good accuracy, because manual feature extraction is avoided. We'll have a small quick case study. We will take the same number recognition and assume we are not expert with the digit recognition. So I am extracting these features manually, horizontal lines, vertical lines, and small circles. Let us look at vertical lines first. One has a vertical line, so I'm happy. Only one digit is having a vertical line. Interestingly, 4 also has a vertical line. 9 has a vertical line. 7 also can have a vertical line. So when the machine is given with vertical line as feature, it will get confused whether it is 1 or 4 or 9. So it is a wrong feature. Come to horizontal lines. You can write 0 in such a way that you have an horizontal line there. You can write 3, you can have 4, 7, 8. It is your own character. It is your handwriting. So there are more than one digit with horizontal lines as a feature. Again, a wrong feature. Small circles. 2 will have a small circle. 0 also can have a small circle. 6 will have a small circle. 8 will have a small circle. 9 will have a small circle. So the reason why ANN, any ANN, you take any ANN, artificial neural networks, BPN, Cohen, Hopfield, or anything, they are unable to give good results because they are dependent on the previous stage of manual feature extraction. One research scholar's thought from the team of Professor Geoffrey Hinton from Canada, who is said to be the father of deep learning. His team, one person's thought, changed the entire scenario of machine learning. He decided, why should I go for manual feature extraction? I am making mistakes. What I make it automatic, or why I give the responsibility to the algorithm itself. The resultant is a better accuracy, and now the entire world is moving towards deep learning. So these are the significant aspects, and we are going to concentrate more on the automated feature extraction part, which I feel many of the researchers are not aware of it. Right? We are going to talk about that with a case study of a specific algorithm. So if you want to go into machine learning, this is a complete picture of machine learning where this specific box shows the different types of deep learning. I have given only 10 or 12, but if you browse now, you can get thousands of deep learning networks. The only difference between we researchers from India and the people from abroad is they apply their thought and they try to find hidden information. Where is feature extraction? Where is pre-processing be done? They think like that, but normally we do not do that. We go for Python and we just drop down, we take a unit, densenet, execute and give the answer. So let us check that automated feature extraction from the point of convolutional neural network. I hope most of you must be knowing about convolutional neural network, right? The primitive approach is deep feed-forward neural network. Even before CNN came into existence, we have another method called as deep feed-forward neural network, but it has a drawback. Let us see what is the drawback. Say, for example, assume I have a machine with a digit recognition capability. That means it will recognize whether the digit is 8 or not. Okay. So when I give a test data as 8, it says it is 100% an 8. Then when I give another data as 5, again it says it's not an 8. Okay, perfect. 100%. It is efficient. My DFNN works well. Now look at the second set of data. When I give the second set of data with the same 8 and 5, it says I do not know. The machine which was able to give me the result perfectly 10 minutes back, now it says I do not know. What is the difference between the first set and the second set? The data remains same, 8, 5, but we have a hidden information here. If you carefully observe, the first set has all the region of interest, 8 and 5 in the middle. But when you look at 8 and 5 of the second set, it is pushed to some corners. That means my DFNN is highly sensitive to the position of the region of interest. Only if it is available in the center, it can give a good result. If not, it cannot give a good result. So how can I solve this problem? Immediately don't say we can go to CNN. No, we have other methods too. We can train the data 8 with different positions and different sizes. Instead of giving one 8 image, I can give many 8 images. But again, how many images are you going to give? How many positions, how many sizes are there? It is not practically feasible. Already our deep learning model is computationally heavy because we know that we are going to have more number of layers. Again, when we increase the number of images, it is going to be super heavy. Then if you are from computer science background, you will say, sir, we have supercomputers, we have NVIDIA graphic cards, GPU, parallel computing, distributed computing, federated learning, all these stuffs you can talk about. And you can say that I will do that very quickly. But the question is very simple. Irrespective of my position, my name is Jude, right? You're going to call me only Jude when I walk, when I sleep, when I sit or change my position. When a human being doesn't need different data to recognize irrespective of my position, why should a machine need that? Doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Right? So we are going to avoid these two methods and we are going to depend on some other methodology by which this problem can be solved. Again, the solution for that is not CNN, it is our normal convolution process. Normal convolution process. What is convolution? It is a mathematical operation on two functions. It is a mathematical operation on two, this is taken from Wikipedia, on two functions, f and g. You have two inputs for convolution, f and g, and it will produce a third output, which we call it as a modified version of one of the original functions. Say, for example, f is your original image, G is another duplicate data. So when we look at the output, it will be actually a modified version of the original image F. The chances that it may give you a position different output or position variable output. The positions of the data in the original image need not be there in my output image. This single concept of convolution, when it is mixed with our normal artificial neural network, we call it as convolutional neural network. It is not something new. That's why I told you we need to have a thorough understanding on artificial neural network. Just C plus NN is equal to deep learning model. One deep learning model, convolutional neural network. So how this convolution is going to do that? You take this picture of a boy sitting in the middle of the garden. For us, it will look like a middle. But if the computer doesn't understand the position of the child, what it is going to do is, if you have a convolution method, it is going to divide my original image into many small segments. Many small segments are many small sub-images. Right? Here I am having 77 small images or sub-images. You can see the body part of the child is available in more than one sub-image. Take the first row, 1, 2, 3, sixth sub-image you see. The head is in the rightmost corner, lower rightmost corner. The next seventh is in the middle, and next you have in the leftmost corner. Come to the second row, different positions. So what I'm trying to say is, instead of giving the image, raw image directly, if we go through convolution, the chances of that machine making a decision that there is a boy in that image is high. So convolution also aids in getting a better accuracy of that specific machine. So how are we going to split this into small images? For this, we need to have a bit some idea on image processing, because you people are computer vision group. I hope you must be having that. Look at the edge operators in the textbook of Rafael Gonzalez, where you can find Roberts, Previous, Sopel. Many operators will be used. F is your original image, and G is this type of duplicate images. When we mix these two things together, we can find the splitted images. Or when we convolve these two images together, one is the original image, the other one can be called as a duplicate image, a small matrix. We can find out different, or we can obtain different sub-images with the help of this convolution process. So there is no necessity to train the network with new images or more images where the child will be in different position. Convolution will do that specific. Now, coming to the convolution neural network, we can see the input image. We have a convolution process. We have a max pooling process. Finally, again, we come back to our artificial neural network only, where it is going to make a decision yes or no. So architecture-wise, there are many other concepts, but majority we are going to depend on convolution, max pooling, and our fully connected neural network. Right? So different issues are also there. Maybe we can discuss a bit later. How to achieve step number 1? You can see an image of dogs in this picture. So I can recognize it as a dog, but computers can never recognize that it is as a dog. It can understand only numbers. It can understand only numbers. So I am also going to play with numbers and try to find or trying to split these images into many small sub-images, which is the main objective of my convolution process. Right? So assume a 32 cross 32 cross 3 image. 3 corresponds to the dimensions. If it's a color image, you will have RGB. So it is 32 cross 32 cross 3. So now let us see how we are going to find out, or the machine is going to find out the dogs in this image. Assume you are left in a dark room. You are left in a dark room where there is no power, and you are asked to find out some objects. What will you do? You will go out, take a torchlight or a flashlight, come back, and then try to search. The same process is done by convolution layer also. The dark room where you are left is equivalent to the image in which the machine is going to search for some object. Right? And the torchlight which you are taking for support, right? You are using or torchlighting supporting you to find out your original object in that room. That torchlight, or we can call it as flashlight, it is equivalent to that duplicate image G, right? When you convolve these F and G, we are going to get some output. Or when you switch on your torchlight on a specific portion of a room, what will happen? Will the entire room be visible to you? No, you can see only a small portion of that room. That is the subimage. That is the subimage. So with this analogy, it will be very easy to understand how this convolution process is being carried out in CNN. So this flashlight or torchlight, it is also a matrix, technically speaking, with an area very much lesser than your original image. Say for example, 5 cross 5 pixels. And these are the important parameters which you need to understand when you go for convolutional CNN training process. We may think it's just a duplicate image, but the dimensions, their filter values, those parameters are going to affect the way in which you are going to get a correct decision or not. Assume the small torch, if you are showing it in the wrong direction, you may not be able to get the objects. Or if the circumference of the torchlight is very small, the dimensions, if it is not suitable, again, you may not be able to get that. These are one of the crucial parameters which we need to take care when we go for our convolutional neural network. This flashlight or torchlight is also called as a filter. In our implementation, we normally say kernel or filter, right? That is nothing but this concept of torchlight. And it is also a matrix or an array. It may not be an image. It will not have any information within it, but it will be an array or a matrix with a size 5 cross 5 cross 3, say for example. So what happens? Your array, that small G, is overlapped with your original image. Your torchlight is superimposed on the specific portion of the room. So if your pixel size or if your filter size is 5 cross 5, there is another region in the image 5 cross 5 which will be overlapping. Multiply each and every elements together, add up, and now you are going to get a sub-image. Wrong. How will you get a sub-image? I told theoretically it is a sub-image, but it will not be a sub-image. When you multiply individual values and when you add, you are going to get only a single number, right? Now what we are going to do is, if I'm unable to find the object, I am going to do it with all other locations of the room. So how many numbers will I get? Each position, when I change, another 5 cross 5 will be overlapping, and I will be getting different numbers depending upon the number of times I am moving my torchlight. So say for example, if I'm moving 784 possible locations, if I'm moving 784 times, then I will have 784 single numbers. And when I get 784 single numbers, I can convert it into a two-dimensional matrix, which is an image 28 cross 28. This is called as one sub-image. Now how to get another sub-image? Go out, take another torchlight and come. And then again, you try to find out the object. Or technically speaking, use more filters. The number of filters, underline this word, number of filters. This is another parameter which you need to pay attention when you go for the training process of convolutional neural network. The optimization process of convolutional neural network. If the number of filter selection is wrong, again, you may end up with some wrong identification or wrong answer. So more number of filters, you will get many sub-images. And this is the overlapping process. Red color matrix corresponds to the filters. The blue color corresponds to the original image. A 3 cross 3 overlapping. When you multiply and add, you will get the last digit as -4, which we see here on my extreme right side. Visualization. When you write a research paper, it is always good if you give the visualization of the features also. Right? So when you come out of the convolution layer, this is how all the sub-images will look like. I have 10 rectangular boxes. So this car image is divided into 10 rectangular boxes, small sub-images. Right? So this is the purpose of my convolution layer. But what do I see from here? We need to think. What is the purpose of dividing into 10 sub-images? Okay, one reason is I need not train my complete system with again and again images. Is there any other advantage? When you closely observe these images, you can see the gray shades, lines, arcs, which closely resembles the front portion of the car. That means, can I say the output of the convolution layer is actually the features of my image? Or can I equal or make my convolution layer equivalent to a feature extraction process? The answer is yes. Your convolution layer actually does the process of feature extraction. Now, can you correlate with the statement I gave in the beginning? The methodology itself is going to have the feature extraction. We are not going to extract any features and supply to the deep learning process. So each 28 cross 28 matrix is called as a feature descriptor. Now you are getting more features too. Right? Now again, there is a bit drawback with that features. Maybe I can give you an example. Say for example, I am showing here the output and the filter. I'm not showing you the original image. For a convolution process, we need an original image, we need a filter. When we convolve these two things, we will get an output. I'm showing you an output and I'm showing you the filter. I am hiding the original image from you. From this, can you guess what object I am talking about? Maybe someone can unmute your mic and let me know. I will give a clue. This is an animal. Anyone? Okay. So I'm not sure why you are not able to give an answer, but I will take in other way that. Pardon? I get some voices. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I will take in that way that
It's monkey. It's monkey.
a monkey. Okay. Thank you, madam. It's monkey. Thank you. Any other answers?
Giraffe.
Giraffe. Okay, very good. So monkey, giraffe, many answers are there. What does it indicate? With the features which I got from my first convolution layer, I am unable to predict the animal correctly. Actually, I am talking about a mouse, the back portion of the mouse. But interestingly, these features are not sufficient enough because these are called as low-level features. These are called as low-level features. So only if I go for higher level features, then there's a chance of myself identifying the animal correctly increase. Otherwise, it is not going to be properly identified. Right? So idea is you need to increase the number of layers. Now again, you come back to the slides which I gave you earlier. Only if you have more convolution layers, that's why AlexNet, which won the competition, had 1,000 layers or more than that. It was trained with so many images. When you are training with so many images, you need to have more layers as possible to make sure that your accuracy will not be compromised. So when you have more number of layers, you can get the complete higher level features. Maybe one line you will have from the first layer. When that input is given to the second convolution layer, there will be another adjoining line. It's like you are showing the torchlight, you are finding one small line, then you will slowly, you will not take it to the complete different position, right? You will slowly follow that specific line. That's how the machine is also going to learn. And these high level features may be a curve, a straight edge, or anything of that sort. And once you find the features, so more number of convolution layers, automatically you are going to get the final output in the best possible way. The second layer is your max pooling layer. Why do we have a max pooling layer? You can observe that the child, the small boy sitting in the middle of the garden, he was sitting in the middle of the garden. When we divided into many small images, I gave you only in the 6th frame, we saw the head of the child. First 5 frames are without any information of that boy. That means, again, come to the natural intelligence. All the data which enters the process are not necessary. We can remove them. So our complexity of the process also will be less. How can we do that? Just check the output of the convolution values. If it is a 0, then it indicates there is a mismatch between the torchlight and the room. So choose only those sub-images for which your convolution value is high. So that can be done with the help of a simple downsampling technique called as max pooling technique, where we can arrange all the sub-images in different quadrants. Say, for example, in the first quadrant, I have 4. Each yellow color column corresponds to a sub-image, and I am choosing 1:4. I am choosing 1:4. From one specific part, I am taking one image. So it is going to be reduced with the ratio of 1:4. Finally, I come to the fully connected layer, and as usual, our artificial neural network is going to work out. So this is the architecture level. The information which you need to understand is feature extraction. Now, I want you to think, can we replace convolution with another mathematical methodology, which can also do the process of feature extraction? Is it possible? Can you think? Now let us come to the training part of the convolution neural network. This is where optimization comes into picture. Right? We cannot depend only on the fully connected neural network weights. We have also another parameter, which is the torchlight, which is very, very crucial in identifying the object. So we have 2 sets of weights now. One is the fully connected layer weights, and the other one is the convolution layer parameters. When you adjust both these 2 things together, your training process will become completely complex. The process remains the same. Come from the front direction, feed forward direction, calculate the convolution layer output as I demonstrated a few minutes back. Then you go for the max pooling layer, then come to the fully connected layer where you'll go for the net value calculation and the activation function estimation. Then come back with an error value. So when it is giving an error value, it means CNN falls under the category of supervised learning. It falls under the category of supervised learning. That means you need the target vectors. Come back and adjust the weights. You can use the gradient descent algorithm for adjusting the fully connected layer weights. Right? The mathematical equations I am not showing here, but you can refer some of my YouTube videos which are made public by some of the institutions where I have given all the mathematical equations for adjusting the weights. Now, once these weights are adjusted, we are going into the convolution layer part, the filter parameter part. Again, the filter parameters need to be adjusted. When I say 5 filters, you may think only 5 values to be adjusted. No, each filter is a matrix. Say, for example, a small 5 cross 5 matrix. 5 cross 5 is 25. That means 25 into 5. 125 parameters I need to adjust. I need to find out the loss function from the previous step, adjust with the help of the chain rule. You must have learned about partial differentiation. We need to make use of the partial differentiation concept to adjust the weights. When one weight changes, the other weight will not change. Again, it is a complex process. Once you adjust all the filter parameters, again, you come back and this process has to be repeatedly done as usual till our error value becomes 0 or at least within a tolerable value. So the parameter adjustment is very, very crucial. It's very, very complex. To avoid that, nowadays there are many pre-trained models available in the software package. They have made us lazy. People never bother about the mathematical equations behind that, right? You just click on one algorithm, Adam or any algorithm, all these things are hidden there. In pre-trained models, one layer is frozen. That means your convolution features are frozen. If you are using the same image, then again, you will not bother about going into the mathematical equations. That's why Indian research papers are not giving any novel contributions or innovative contributions. This you can understand. So from today onwards, if you do not know, if you already know, that's fine. If you do not know, understand that convolution is doing the process of feature extraction and max pooling is doing the process of feature selection. Can we think of some changes on that? Afterwards, you must be knowing all these things. Maybe we can go to the pre-trained models directly. As I told you, nowadays, because of the complexity in the training process, they are giving ready-made software packages are giving you ready-made pre-trained models. I will skip all these things. ready-made pre-trained models where they say that one layer of CNN can be frozen, or you need not do any changes with that. But again, you should be careful. If you are choosing a model, say for example, unit, that unit must have been tested with an image which is also almost equivalent to your application image. Say for example, I am doing some brain image classification. Suppose if unit is not trained with a brain image, then the features which I am extracting from that, what is convolution layer values doing? It is actually feature extraction. Then the features I am extracting from there is going to be wrong. The unit would have been tested with some mammogram images or lung images, aeroplane images, many other stuffs. But when there is no matching between the pre-trained model images and my application images, I should not use transfer learning. But people do not bother about that. They say lung image classification, okay, go to Python, scroll down a specific model and use it. Again, that is not going to be beneficial. You will not get the answer. You will have the specifications of the images which are used for training unit or DenseNet, ResNet, whatever it may be. You can go there, check that model, find out whether your images are already trained. If yes, proceed with that. Your training process will be much more simple. If not, you should use only a custom-based model. These are some of the models available, VGG 16, VGG 19. The main purpose of creating pre-trained model is to eliminate the optimization problem, or otherwise to eliminate the training process of complexity in the training process of CNN. We have VGG 16 layers will be there. Again, it is a crucial issue. How many layers should I have when I go for a custom model for my application? Right? That can be solved with pre-trained models too. That's why all the models are having a heavy competition in training with more images, 1,000 images, 2,000 images. I have trained my model with 10,000 images. That means it will work for all sort of applications. Then it will become popular. Python will absorb that model, they will install it, you will get money. Finally, it is all going to be around money. These are different models available. Now I'll just quickly, in 5 minutes, I will brush up through one application where we can find out the tunable parameters and the non-tunable parameters case also. So image, I'm going to talk about from the COVID-19 perception, how we can identify whether it is COVID-19 or not. Again, another major problem with the people working with deep learning is most of the time, whatever may be their application, immediately they say, I want to use deep learning. Right? But the editors will check whether your application really demands the use of deep learning. Right? Only if the data is complex, then you should go for deep learning based systems, because it is designed for complex data. What is a complex data? Differentiating a cat and an aeroplane is not a complex data. Even if you extract manual features and give it to a normal perceptron or BPN, you will get a good answer. Then why should you go for a deep learning? You cannot say, I'm going to buy tomatoes from the city when I have a tomato shop nearby. What is the use? Don't make the things complex just to make sure that your research paper looks big. It is not the case. Right? Look at these images. If I don't show you the names below, you will not be able to identify whether it is COVID-19, pneumonia, or SARS. Right? So these type of applications are the one which actually need your deep learning. So check your application whether it is really necessity to go for deep learning models. And this is the thing which I have explained you now. And in the research papers, try to find out or try to use all the experimental setups which you have given. This is one skeleton of, maybe I don't have time to go deep into that, of this Keras model, where you can find out the convolution layers, max pooling layers, all having simple commands by which we can set up the architecture and the training process. That's why people say that people are not going into the deeper concepts of deep learning. Right? Then we have the dropout also, which is used to avoid any noises. We are just showing the images, right? We are not extracting the important features and giving to the machine. So when the machine is learning on its own, we are having an assumption that it would have learned some noises, background information also, along with the original data. So we remove some neurons with the hope that they are overlearned neurons. And that can be done with the help of this drop out. Maybe if you need any support or help with this programming implementation, you can contact me offline at any time. And optimizer ADA delta, just look at the line one, the last but the one line. Optimizer is ADA delta. All the mathematical equations, the tuning parameters, optimization parameters, optimization process has become obsolete now because Python is simply giving ADA delta algorithm. It is going to do all the process. 2 weeks back, we received a research paper. They have changed the algorithms and they have got several results. Now the question is, have you framed the algorithm? Have you designed the equations? No. It is available in Python. Then the chances of paper getting rejected is high than going for acceptance. So you know all these things, performance measures. Maybe 2 hours would have been an ideal time for me, sorry. So if you look at this analysis of these results, right, you need to justify logically also. Pneumonia versus COVID-19. These two diseases are close to each other. They have white patches in the lungs. So their answer will be definitely lesser than your normal versus COVID-19. Normal is without any white patches. COVID-19 will have white patches. But sometimes, again, the researchers will include results which are astronomically wrong. Logically, we can easily check whether A will give good results or B will give good results. Check whether your results are correct or not. Some results, these are some other works. Maybe I'm not sure whether I have the parameters with me. Yeah, maybe these results will not have the parameters in this presentation. If you use Keras, there is a possibility to take the architecture along with the training process also. Right? That will give you a clue or an idea about how many parameters are tunable and how many parameters are non-tunable. Non-tunable means it is fixed when you go for a pre-trained model. But when you go for a custom-based model, as I have given here, this is a custom-based model designed by me. I chose 6 convolution layers. Then I chose 3 max pooling layers. Right? When you choose like this, then all the equation process or your implementation should be done by you. Python will support you, but when you make some changes, interesting changes in the equation, when you go for adjusting the filter parameters, it will be definitely giving you a lead to some other ideas by which you can train the convolutional neural network. So when you look at the model, custom-based model, again, the graphs will not be that much good. This is BGG16 is a pre-trained model. They have less fluctuations. Look at here, custom-based model. You can see lots and lots of variations, right? The thing is, when you have more variations, there is a high chance that your result may be trapped in local minima. Then again, you will not get a better result. So we say deep learning is good, accurate, but there are many loops and holes available within that, which we need to find out and which we need to rectify. Attack a problem, take a problem and try to find out and solve that. That is the way how the research has to be carried out. These are another databases. Maybe madam will supply you the video. You can take the databases. It had only 300 to 400 images, but I am sure now with the rise of COVID cases, you can see plenty of images with them. Another thing is some models which you can predict, like how this IIT Kanpur, they have IIT Kharagpur or Kanpur, I'm not very sure. They have given a model of rise and fall in the COVID cases. You can also do it. Quickly, I go through the open research problems. This is what the focal point of my session. Go home, check all your mathematics concepts, take the support of a mathematics faculty, spend some time and think whether we can replace convolution of CNN with another methodology, which will be equivalent to a feature extraction. You will become world famous within a single day. How do you fix the number of layers in custom model? This is again a problem. I do not go for pre-trained model. If I'm not going for pre-trained model, I am dependent on the number of layers. How much layers should I have? Again, it is not fixed so far now. It is an open research problem. When executing more images, what happens to the complexity, right? So far, people are not looking at the complexity. Now, the research community is slowly diverting their attention towards complexity, where there are huge scope. Why should I adjust convolution layer weights? Why should I go for training the fully connected layer weights? Can I make some changes and make sure that only one set of weights need to be adjusted? Is there any correlation between the weights of the convolution layer and the fully connected layer weights? Is it possible? Or can I remove the max pooling layer? Or if max pooling layer cannot be removed, is there any simple method by which I can go for the process? Any other activation function similar to RELU, can I make use of that? You can think. What is your contribution in the model? This is what the editors will ask you now. If you go for standard PSI-indexed IEEE transactions or ACM journals, it is very difficult to now, maybe 6 years back, 7 years back, you would have gone through a paper with similar models, pre-trained models, but now it is a bit difficult. So try to at least do some contributions in the model, maybe in terms of complexity, maybe in terms of architecture, maybe in terms of algorithm, or maybe in terms of the performance measures too. Is an accuracy of 100% possible? Again, people think that deep learning is highly accurate and they try to give a result with 100% accuracy, 99.9%. All those are again astronomical values. They are good in the sense that they are better than AL. That doesn't mean they are reaching the target 100%. There may be some logical mistake with you. Again, this is one of the common problem which we see in our result section. When we see some things which are not comfortable for us, immediately you will face a desk rejection of the manuscript. So these are some minor issues which you need to take care when specifically talking about deep learning methodologies. That's all I want to say. So I hope you would have motivated, and maybe you will come out with some different contributions, some different innovations, target that feature extraction where we have more scope, right? Because I'm not sure how many of you know that feature extraction is doing, convolution layer is doing feature extraction. If you know that, you will try to replace it. And also try to go for the complexity, because optimization process, it is not that much correct to say optimization in deep learning, or for, it may not be correct, right? The tunable parameters, how we can minimize the intensity of that. If that is done, then complexity can be reduced. Take one of these two problems, attack, and you can bring out good contributions. These are some of my open special issues. This is in IEEE Journal of Biomedical and Health Informatics. Maybe if you want, you can ask me the link later. You can find this in Google also. The last date is 31st August, right? So you have time. If you have anything within this scope, you can let me know. And this is an MDPy journal. This is an open access journal. You will have fee. So as I told you in my presentation, you need to have international collaboration. If you have international collaboration, then there is a high chance your collaborator may be funded by their university. They will pay. If possible, you can, if interested, you can go for this special issue too. But this is all about intelligent transportation systems, where we talk about surveillance, pothole detection, vehicle detection, traffic management, all related stuff. But the crux is machine learning or deep learning. And this is another free journal. This is only a Scopus indexed journal. And again, this is healthcare informatics with only machine learning or deep learning. The last date is, I think, this month end. Maybe you have time. If you need support from me in any of this case, you can always let me know. Or otherwise, if you want any support from the other journals in which I'm an associate editor, you can always feel free to contact me. These are my details. I'm not sure how many of you know me earlier. If you don't have my details, you can note these things. You can always contact me at any point of time. My WhatsApp number, everything is available for you. I will try to give you a solution, but even I have my own limitations, right? If I don't know the solution, I will show you the way from where you can definitely get the solution. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience listening. Let us now go into quickly the question and answer sessions. Any queries, you can ask me. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you, sir. Participants, if you are having any query, you can ask.
Thank you, Ashwini. Thank you, Supriya. No other questions. Interesting. Thank you all. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Krishna. I think she's asking about explainable AI, right? That is another interesting aspect of today's scenario. When we talk about AI, in specifically, thanks, Supriya. When we talk about neural networks or anything, it seems to be a black box, right? It seems to be a black box. I asked you two questions. How a child is crying, why a child is crying when it needs to gain the attention of the immediate environment. Nobody knows. In the same way, these machine learning algorithms, most of them seems to be a black box. In the sense, we cannot understand the step-by-step procedure of what is happening inside that. Now, explainable AI is another recent area of research where when you give an algorithm, explainable AI doesn't bother much about the application part. When you give an algorithm, you must give each and every, you must give explanation for each and every step you have incorporated in the algorithm. It is not just like you say that, okay, this is multiplying, adding and giving the value. Why it is multiplying? Why it is adding? If it is not multiplying, what will happen? Those inbuilt concepts should be given when you write a research paper, when specifically when it is all about explainable AI, right? So nowadays there are many journal issues looking for explainable AI too. So the only objective is a deeper understanding. They find that understanding is lacking among us, so they try to initiate, to kickstart, to trigger our understanding via those concepts. That is the difference between AI and explainable AI. So if you write a research paper with explainable AI, give much emphasis on the algorithm part. Otherwise, there is very less chance that your paper will be accepted. Any other questions in the chat?
No more questions, sir. Only one question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The session was very informative. The session was very informative and useful. Once again, I thank you very much, sir, for spending your valuable time with us. I thank all the participants for your patience listening. Thank you, one and all.
Sir, I had one query.
Yeah. Tell me, madam.
Yeah, sir, as if the kernels are symmetrical, so can we replace convolution with correlation also?
Sorry, madam, can you repeat once again?
Sir, if the kernels are symmetrical, so can we replace convolution with correlation?
Yes, sure, you can do that.
Okay, and sir, if you want the features like standard deviation, like the statistical features, how they can be taken care in deep learning network?
Yeah, very interesting question. I should say that CNN is automatically extracting the edge features, right? But as madam asked, she may be having some application where she will need the standard deviation, all the textural features, or we say heraldic features. If that is the case, there is another innovative idea within CNN. You need not implement the CNN completely. You can just stop with the convolution layer. Stop with the convolution layer, take the output of convolution layer. What is the output of convolution layer? They are sub-images. So from that images, you can extract the features as you like and then give it to any machine learning model. This is called as hybrid deep learning models.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Some person asked some journals, which area, deep learning and machine learning is a tool, I should say. It can be used by chemical engineers, biomedical engineers, or many, right? So if you look for journals on image processing, okay. If you look for journals on image processing and deep learning combined stuff, I can specify some Springer journals, right? Springer journals such as Signal Image and Video Processing. International Journal of Signal Image and Video Processing is there. Then we have Circuits, Systems and Signal Processing. Circuits, Systems and Signal Processing. Then we have International Journal of Real-Time Image Processing. For the first two journals, you can use any data, but for IJRTIP, you can use only real-time images which you have captured. Then you have soft computing. Soft computing talks more about which free for other, any good open access. Okay. Soft computing talks more about the machine learning part. So these are some journals which you can look for. Maybe you can let me know in a privately to my WhatsApp. I can give you the list. Swati has asked a question: any good open access journal which free for author? Swati, open access means someone should pay the journal, right? If your institution is paying, then that's fine. Otherwise, you need to pay. Right? If you are good enough, if your bank balance is good enough, you can pay, absolutely no problem. When you pay and publish, that paper will be available free for all authors. MDPA, for example, is an open access journal. Publisher, MDPA is a publisher. Under that, you have many journals, right? All the journals, when you publish, you need to pay, and once paid, the article will be available for viewing by all the researchers. Right? But you need to pay. All good open access journal, I normally do not prefer open access journal, but if you want to go for open access journal, which free for author, I'm just getting some contradictory data, whether you are ready to pay or not, I'm not very sure. If you're ready to pay, then you can go for IEEE Access. IEEE Access is good, one good journal, but their quality expectation will be high, but still if you can get through, that's fine. Then you have MDPA journal, MDPA publishers journals, that also you can go through that, right? But keep this as a last option. Don't go below that. There are some journals which say we can publish in 1 week or 15 days. They take 15,000 or 10,000 from you, and then finally your paper will not appear anywhere. Don't have funding, then Swati, you should not go for open access journal. If you're a collaborator, then it's fine. Otherwise, don't go for open access. Open access means you have to pay. Right? If you don't have funding, I don't think that it is ideal for you. Go for some free journals or some hybrid journals where they will have the option for free and open access fees. Sir, which website you suggest for medical data sets? Medical data sets, again, you will not get all the data set in a single stretch. If it is a retinal data set, you have CASIA, then Drive data set, many things are available. If you want to have brain images, then you can go for this CMG University web data set, Canadian University. Then if you want to go for mammogram images, then again we have the MAIAS database. So you just go to Google, type which specific medical image you are looking for, then you can find out the web link. Most of the time it will be freely downloadable, so you can check. UCLA is another repository, UCLA, where you can find many images too. How to get tumor medical images, very complex process, right? So nowadays I can see some medical brain tumor images, which again it is dependent on the nature of the image. Tumor can be brain tumor, any types of tumor. If it is a brain tumor, it is not that easy. You can approach some physicians also. Real-time images also you can collect, but the way in which you are going to treat the real-time image in your research paper should be good enough, because you do not have a standard benchmark. Nobody else would have tested on your data set. Then the authors, then the editors will raise a query. How will you validate? Then your experiment results are sufficient enough, then you can get through that. Try to approach some physicians for brain tumor images, or you can search some websites in Google too. For medical imaging, Dr. Rima, you can suggest journal to EC Publish. In my opinion, there is no shortcut, Dr. Rima. You need to write the paper properly. There are 3 compartments for getting a paper accepted. Doing good research, for that our workshop is very, very important. Understanding the concepts, then writing a good paper. That itself is an art, right? That itself, I have another session, maybe some of my videos will be available. Maybe you can refer that. Then you are choosing some journals. In my opinion, there is a journal called as International Journal of Imaging Systems and Technology. Maybe I can type that. This is Wiley journal. This is an impact factor journal. It has SCI. It is a free journal, but I feel the expectation on this journal from the authors is very less. Right? International Journal of Imaging Systems and Technology, specifically for medical related stuffs. Sridevi Madam, I have already typed, I think. Imaging Systems and Technology, and for Springer, you can see a Journal of Medical Systems. Journal of Medical Systems. They also relatively, expectation is relatively less. But I will suggest you to go for this Imaging Systems and Technology. the chances of your paper getting accepted is high, provided you have some good research contents and the way in which you write. CSC department, which journal is best? Madam, it is not based on the department. See, I am not from CSC department actually. The poster they have given wrongly. I am not from CSC. I am from actually ECE. But my entire area for the past 10 years is into machine learning and AI. So it is not based on the department. If you can specify your area, then I can definitely give you the Dr. Rima, yes, it is Scientext. International Journal of Imaging Systems and Technologies, Scientext. Wiley. I'm not sure, Wiley or Taylor and Francis. I think it's Wiley. Deep learning video captioning. Video captioning is a very narrow part inside your AI and ML concepts. So I will advise you, go for any journals which encourages submissions of images and deep. You need not worry about video captioning and all other stuff. Signal, image and video processing, you can try. Or any other image journals will also take in video captioning. Maybe you can contact me later via my WhatsApp or any other medium. I can guide you in journals, in journal publications, or maybe if you need some technical inputs, I can give. Thank you, Dr. Rupa. Thank you very much. It is absolutely, finally, it is all about how you are making use of that. That's what I told you when I gave my introduction. Try to put those things into practice. Half an hour, I know it is not equally biased. Male has a different scenario and female has a different scenario. I understand that, but still, if you can put some effort, maybe half an hour at least, into either writing a paper or technical knowledge gaining, then that will be much more useful to you. Write some one paragraph, 5 lines or 6 lines in an MS Word file. At the end of 1 month, you will definitely have your paper with you. But even that 5 lines, we are not able to write. Right? It is not that difficult to write 5 lines in an MS Word file. 5 lines, 5 lines, 5 lines. At the end of the 1 month, you will get a good paper with you if you have good knowledge on the specific topic. What my WhatsApp number is, I have shared already 9443. My email ID, madam, you can check my WhatsApp number. You can ask me at any time. Thank you all. Any more queries or questions, madam?
So no questions, sir.
Okay.
So thank you once again, sir. So very useful. So have answered for all the questions. Very useful, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Keep in touch. Maybe at any point of time.
Thank you, participants. So join the session. It's session by 12 o'clock. Thank you.